Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Here we
Hello,
go. It's Beyond 2D. I'm one of your hosts, Jessica Dugas, and this is my fabulous co host.
Farron Dozier. Shout out to What's the Count?
There it is. There it is. We are in our final part of our series about grief.
Oh, yeah.
This has been quite the journey. Quite the
It
journey.
has. It has. I I believe each series that we've had, I found a level of peace in our conversation, and I hope that hope people discover something for themselves as well. So
Yeah.
just got to tell the truth to yourself. If nobody else, tell the truth to yourself.
That's it. That's it. I love it. And I think, yeah, I agree. Everything that we've talked about on this show has been pristine timing
Yeah.
in my own life. And I say this all the time. Like, I'm so grateful when this has been this series more than anyone we've done so far, any series that I've ever done on the Breakthrough Show Network. I have gotten more messages about this series than anything else, which
Mhm.
means that tells me that it has been the right time for all of you out there as well. So I really want to thank all of our viewers and listeners for tuning in for this series because this has been a hard one. And not just tuning in,
Yeah.
but participating in the
Yes.
comments,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
which is what we would love you to do right now is go down to the comments and say hello. Let us know where you're joining from. And we would love to hear from you on this topic today. So far, we have talked about the definition of grief. We've talked about the different stages of grief, learned some new things in that. We talked about grief support last week, and not support as well.
There's
We
not
talked
as
about and tonight we are talking about a topic that is, I think, a challenging one for so many people who feel stuck in their grief, and that is transforming grief into growth. And I think we might come with some new perspectives for you today that may liberate you in what you have been experiencing in your own grief journey. At least that is my hope for this evening as well.
yes. I being in this process, grieving process with my dad, and being able to be a complete and be whole with some things around his passing for myself. I then looked outside and I was like, I wonder if people are walking around on edge because of they're dealing with some type of loss, whether it's a loved one, a sibling, a family member, your dog, uh, car accident. You know, people love their cars and they total their car. Like whatever that is, I wonder. It made me think about how we suffer in silence and don't really say what we're dealing with. But then when something happens, we lash out at people. I'm like,
Yep.
I wonder if grief is connected to some of the lashing outs in the world. And I would say yes. I would say
Mhm.
I'm sure that there's a lot of conversations tied to loss and how to express that and how to, like we're going to talk about, how do you transform that to be it, to evolve from that grief so yeah, I just believe that if we told the truth, a lot of the behavior could be tied to some type of loss, especially with what the media puts out. I
Yeah.
mean, not every, but a lot of the news is just blood, guts, death,
Yep.
loss, injuries. It's like, and and we take that in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like we take that in as a human being. We take that, and then how you take that in and filter that for yourself could create anxiety for. I hope that don't happen to my family. Like all
Mhm.
that stuff that comes with that. And lastly, for me, I believe the fear of death is something
Mm.
that all of us have a fear of. We may not say it or articulate it that way, but I believe that that could be another core issue around these
Absolutely.
conversations is that fear of death, and I don't want to die before my time, or I don't want to die at all, like whatever that is. But I'm just saying that always tell the truth to yourself, so that way you can find peace and freedom in that conversation about yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Some of what you were saying about how I feel like that really is an issue these days. We are so inundated with death. Like you said, movies,
Hmm.
music. I still remember. I still remember when Snoop Dogg came out with "Murder Was the Case."
Oh yeah.
You remember that? And you could
uh,
hear the whole beginning of the song, somebody getting shot and everything else,
yeah.
you know? And now we're seeing it in so many more movie games. And there have been scientific studies proving that when you're playing Call of Duty, things like that, your brain does not know the difference
Know the
between
difference.
that and the battlefield.
Oh, let me tell
Doesn't
you.
know the difference.
Woo,
Your
we gonna
brain
go
does
there.
you may think, "Oh, it's fine, I'm just playing a game." But if you're having symptoms of anxiety and all of these other things, you've gotta look at what you're taking in. I wanna take just a moment and say hi to our friends that are joining us this evening. He's got that front row VIP seat,
What's up?
you know. Miss Teresa's here from
Hey,
Tennessee.
TC.
Tennessee. And Brittany said, "Y'all already know how much I love this show. It makes me squirm with excitement and sometimes not so much. But I love I love Beyond 2D and I'm here for it all." Teresa said to your comments, that sounds about right. And we need a mass grief healing for the
For
collective.
real,
Like,
for real,
let's just hold that space as
for
as we're here
real.
this
For the
evening. Miss
collective.
Cheryl's in the building. What's
What's
up,
up,
Miss
Sha-
Cheryl? Good to see you guys tonight. And anybody else that's joining us, we would love for you to chime in, say hello, let us know where you're joining from, and would love to hear from you in this conversation this evening. So, I have a. I also want to tell you, stay tuned because after the break, we got a couple exciting things coming. Number one, you're going to see a sneak peek, first time ever clip of the documentary that I'm working on, called The Friendship Paradox. And we just happened to talk about grief in this clip, and it was
Hmm.
so good. And I said, please, 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 please let me use this in another show as well. So stay tuned because you're not going to, I have been so tight lipped about this project. You're not going to see this anywhere else. So make sure you stay tuned for that. We also are going to be announcing what our next topic is going to be. So get ready. Y'all ready? I don't know if you're ready for,
Oh,
for what's coming next.
you have no choice.
For what's coming next. It's it. You either gonna tune in or you're not. That's at the end
I
of the
want to
story.
I want to touch before you go where you said about the brain, and because that's some of the
Mm,
work that I do with Caldwell,
yeah.
and studying and learning about the limbic system, right? And even with the education, the personal development courses, there is a reality agreement that we have, that we live in a reality agreement. Like stuff out there is not real, but we agree to make it real, and because we have experiences that connect to that. And as she said, the brain can't tell the difference between real and imaginary threats. That's why when you drive your car, when you learn how to drive your car, and your parents or whoever taught you, when you see those brake lights, you put your foot on the brake, right? And that trains your brain. So now when you drive, you could be eating food, listen to music, talking, but when that red light comes on in front of you, what do you automatically, like, you don't even have to be there to put your foot on the brake. That's how powerful that brain is. And so imagine growing up and doing things, and playing these games or whatever that is for you, that understanding how powerful that machine is, that brain is, it cannot tell the difference between real and imaginary threats. And if you live from that principle, that conversation, you will start to see in the world that the reality agreements that have been created, that we were born into, like Santa Claus, or they say, 4 out of 5 dentists say chew this gum. Well, what 4 out of 5 dentists? It's like there's thousands of dentists, millions of dentists across the country, but these 4 out of 5 dentists, Coach is the best purse, Nike is the best shoe. Like those are reality agreements that get created in the world,
Mm,
and we don't even get a say about it. We were just born into it. So living from that distinction, that principle for myself, and then actually looking at it from life, it was like you gotta. There's a lot of stuff you gotta question because some of the stuff is just not true.
Mm,
It's an agreement.
yeah. And I'm at a stage in my life where I'm like, let me connect with that one that didn't. Let me talk to them. Let me figure out, because I'm learning so much about people being silenced and people and stories that are not being told, that now I'm like, what does my platform need to be used for? The
Yes.
stories and the conversations that are not being had. And that's it.
Sometimes,
That's where I'm at.
sometimes,
That's where I'm
sometimes,
at. That's why
sometimes
we're
that's where
here.
we end up. Sometimes
Why
that's where
we're
we
here.
end up.
Um, so I want to give you a fun fact as we talk about transforming grief into growth. Some of you may not be aware of this, but the Breakthrough Show and the Breakthrough Show network was created transforming grief into growth.
Mm,
My when I wrote back in 2017 as part of a collection of short stories about um, things that we've experienced, like moments that we've had that have changed our lives. And I chose to write about my brother's passing and what had happened during that time. And I had been doing other little broadcasts and things like that. I had the Monday Morning Mama show. Some of y'all may or may not have gone back to that time. And I was doing a little bit of coaching and stuff, but this was my first time writing anything. I didn't know what that experience was going to be like for me. And because frankly, I may come across as like I'm an okay writer and I communicate well, but it's a struggle for me. Like I really have to try really hard. Um, and so I wrote this story, and it was a three I realized it was a threefold healing process for me, because one, it helped me to heal in writing what this experience meant to me.
mhm,
Two, other people who had experienced my brother's passing as well, it brought us together. It gave us something to talk about, and even somebody who was very close to my brother, and I'll keep it private, who had said to me, "I'm so glad you wrote this, because it was such a blur to me what happened,
mhm,
that now I was kind of this kind of gave me a bird's eye view of, oh, like I wasn't even present like when he had
mhm,
passed." And then third thing is it enables us to, so it's healing for you, healing for other people, but it enables us to expand our network and expand our reach and heal the world, because we're able to make those connections, and somebody's going, "Oh, I've been through grief too, and I've lost my brother too, and I know how that feels." And you're creating these new connections and this ripple effect. So I wrote in the book, and then then it became a bestseller, and I sat there going, "Well, I didn't have a plan for this, like, I didn't know, like, I don't know what to do now." Like, I don't know what to do now, and
mhm,
I realized that, like, trifecta of healing that I had experienced, and I said, "I just want that for more people." I
mhm,
want other people to be able to hear stories, heal while they're telling them, heal while they're listening to them, and expand their communities so that they have that support. And that's when I was like, it would be really cool to have a show like The View, but like not. Something a little more spiritual, a little deeper, a little not so catty,
yeah.
and that's how the Breakthrough Show was born. You can even see it in the Breakthrough Show and the Breakthrough Show Network's logo. It always has an element of purple, because that's my favorite color, and it's also the color for spiritual growth. Um, and then it has yellow, which is my brother's favorite color, and the sun coming up from the clouds. And it's that
Mm,
breakthrough moment that it may still be cloudy, but we're going to keep going,
yeah.
which is essentially what transforming grief into growth means to me. It means grief, and it means I have those moments of sadness. I I have those moments of being really angry sometimes, some of these stages that we talked about in episode 2. Um, I have all of these things, and I'm choosing to move forward knowing that that grief is still there, but
It's
and
it's funny you say that because on the rainbow colors, there's actually 7 colors.
mm,
A lot of them displayed today are only 6 colors,
mm,
and that seventh color is indigo,
yeah,
which is that spirituality
yep,
piece. So yeah,
yeah,
a lot of people don't know that there's actually 7 colors.
yeah, yeah. I love, and you can see that. You can see that in you know, in every show that we have on this network. There's some element of that purple indigo, like, that because for me, spiritual isn't necessarily about a religion, and
Yeah,
isn't necessarily about even a relationship to God or a higher power, but it's just it's that commitment to growth as well, like that trust, that faith, that something beyond yourself.
yeah.
um and so that's partly, like, I wanted you guys to know that's partly why this series has been so important to me, because grief is the foundation that the Breakthrough Show Network was built on.
See, we're talking about transforming grief and growth. You know, when I joined the military, I shared that late, just a few years ago, if that, that I discovered I gave my life to death, right? When I joined the military. But what I started studying just life, when we have a child, we're giving birth to that child,
Mm,
we're giving life, but that child, we're all gonna, no one escapes that. Like no one escapes that. And that's, to me, that's how powerful that brain is, that we could live in denial. We could live in denial that that's not going to happen. But we give birth to our children, our generations, that they're going to die one day. And sometimes those children live short lives. Sometimes they live to be 90 or 100. But that's like the reality of life, though. And this is the aspect that we I don't want to say you have to, but you have to find your peace with this conversation.
yeah,
Like the more you find your peace with this conversation, the more it happens around you. You know that you have that strength to maintain. And I tell my daughters, I'm not gonna be here forever, and I don't want you to dwell in this space, but I want you to sit and see what it would feel like when I'm not here. If I'm not here anymore, like I need you to see what that feels like, not to live from there, but to put your emotions in that state so that when I'm gone, you're not going to lose it. Like you have an idea of what that feels like. And to me,
right.
that's also transforming, developing, growing that sense of grief, that relationship to death.
Mm. I
So,
would love to hear from our audience this evening. If you feel like, do
whew,
you feel like you have processed what death means to you? Do you feel like are you at peace with death? Is it something that you're still working on? Um, how do you feel like, where are you at with the death conversation, Farron?
so today, um, I follow Jesus Christ, God, Holy Spirit, and in that relationship with Christ, those kingdom principles, there is no death. There's eternal life. And so, yes, people go to church for fire. We call it fire insurance. However, but for me, that was the last piece of it, because again, I had discovered my relationship to death, and I was pretty cool with it. Um, but when my dad passed, it was like, oh, that's different. Like that's different.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's not what. Okay, now I'm not prepared for that. So grievance classes helped. Again, a lot of the development that I've done, but really going back and creating my relationship with Jesus Christ, non-religious. This is not I'm not religious, but that relationship, um, for eternal life and salvation, that has gave me peace, um, in life, because I have conversations with military that I have, soldiers take their life one every 65 minutes. My sickle cell community, you know, I have friends that have passed away, mentors that have passed away with from that disease or things that can cause secondary health issues. I advocate with the lupus community. I advocate with the cystic fibrosis. So these are I have tough conversations in life
Right.
that are around. Hey, I could be talking to this person one day and then that person's gone the
Yeah.
next day. I've lost friends, advocate friends that way. So for me, I had to settle that in my heart
Mm.
so that I could be at peace. And my dad was of that peace that took me to the point where you really got to do that. You really got to find your peace, because I started looking at my own life expectancy when he passed. I'm like, how much time do
Mm.
I got? I started
Right.
calculating,
Right.
and I'm like, okay, I'm like, I can't live I can't live like this. I recognize it, so I went to God, like, okay, God, you gotta show me what this is for your, because I'm following you. And when God showed me that, He heals His people temporarily and permanently,
Mm.
I got peace. Like, okay, this is about my eternal life, and that's what I live from.
Yeah.
And so I live up against those principles. I put my life up against those conversations, not from a religious aspect, but
Mm.
from a kingdom citizen and believing in those principles in the Trinity. And that is eternal life.
Mm.
All this stuff that we talk about, relationships and communication and all that, that helps me be a better human being for
Right.
myself and to other people, so that I stay on track with my relationship with Christ, because that's His ways. If you look at Christ's ways, He never treated anybody bad,
Mm.
negative, nothing, never talked bad about Himself. And that's His example, His character. A lot of people look at His works of what He did, but
Mm.
look at His character. I don't care
Right.
what His skin color was, His
Right.
character. And that's what I'm drawn to in that conversation of those principles, is how to be a better human being and finding my peace in life and death.
Right. Right.
That's where I had to get.
Yeah, I think ultimately, the death conversation is part of the life conversation.
Mm.
It just is. It comes with it. And I think I want to kind of celebrate everybody who has been navigating through
Mm.
a season of grief and feels like you haven't made any progress, because based on what Farron is saying, and this is my sort of thought in my own mind, the death conversation is completely different when you experience that grief and you've experienced that loss. So whether any of you have recognized it or not, you've come a long way in your
Mm.
own mind, because I promise you that that conversation is completely different now that you've been experiencing that grief, as opposed to maybe before, or experiencing, like you said, that new kind of grief
Yeah,
when I have friends whose children have passed away, or whose spouse has passed away,
yeah,
or whose parents have passed away. Both of my husband's parents are gone now, and he's starting to be in touch with that now, and really like, wow, like, and then you add in whether or not you had a good relationship with that
yeah.
person
That's the other part. Yeah,
before
all
they
of that.
it's just a whole other thing. I want to acknowledge some of the comments really quickly. Cheryl, very
Cool.
honest, and said, "I'm still searching for peace,
Yeah,
still searching for peace." And let us know, Cheryl, if you mean like peace in the death conversation itself, or in just the
myself. Yeah.
generalized grief conversation. Um, Brittany said, "When I reflect on my life, every time I've experienced grief, I have transformed my life in some positive way."
Mhm.
Um, and that's what I feel like. We'll get back to that
Yeah.
in just a moment. Teresa said, "I don't want to miss out on anything. I want to live a long time and die on my own terms." Like, and that isn't that the pipe dream for us all?
That's all of us. Of course, of course,
I
of
think that look,
course.
and I think that's a very human desire, like for
Yes.
us all to have the kind of life that longevity wise that we want.
Yeah.
And 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 obviously we know at the same time that we're not promised that,
Yeah.
we're not. And that's the part that kind of the harmony between what we desire in our humanness and also what we know to be true.
Yeah.
That it's just not, you know, it's not a promised thing. Brittany said, "For the first time in my life, I am at peace with grief. That doesn't take away that I still will have my moments of reminded grief and may feel my feels, but I don't sit in it like I used to." And Cheryl said, "That's my problem, is that I sit in it." And she's talking about the general feeling of grief. And what I want to offer as far as this is concerned is I think as humans, and even with what's out there, we kind of touched on this in the support week, and we kind of touched on this in the stages of grief week as well, is that we like to separate everything as humans. We like everything to be in its own little perfect box. Y'all, I know some of y'all watch those organizing shows on the Netflix, with the pretty little boxes and they're all in their place and everything else. And unfortunately, that is not real life.
That's not
That is not real life. And some of y'all that watch those organizing shows and have kids know that that's not real life. Thank you so much.
right.
Um, but my thing about it is that I challenge people. I challenge anyone that says, I agree with you, Cheryl, saying that you recognize that you're sitting in it. First of all, the recognition of that. There's so many people I know that do sit in it and dwell in it that have no idea they're doing it.
Hmm.
They have no idea they're doing it. But what I want to say about this is I really want to give you guys credit because it's it is okay for you. It does not mean you're stuck if you feel sad sometimes, if you feel angry sometimes, if you feel like you just can't go on sometimes, if you feel like life will never be the same sometimes. Every range of things you're experiencing that society and maybe even your grief counselors and maybe even the little voices in your head or whatever else are telling you that means you're stuck. I think that's a lie.
Yeah.
I think that's a lie. Now, if you are taking that stuckness and you can't show up to events, you can't pull yourself out of bed, you can't go to work, you
Right.
can't do the things that you need to do to life, that's another conversation.
Yeah.
But I'm celebrating you in this moment, Cheryl, because I've seen you show up.
Mm.
You are not stuck like you believe you are. And I'm speaking heart to heart with you, sister, tonight, because you are not stuck like you believe you are. You are doing it. And
Yeah.
it's okay for you to be sad and pissed off and feel stuck and all of those things that I still feel moment to moment.
For sure.
I still feel that, but you're doing it. You're doing it and you're showing up, girl. You are not as stuck as you think you are.
Yeah.
You're not. And we're all here to harass you on.
Sometimes for me, in this transforming grief, into growth, two things is we got to watch how we talk.
Mm,
I stopped saying I miss my dad because
mm,
because by me saying I miss my dad, it's like I put on the jacket of I miss my dad, and I felt the weight of the emotional weight of that. And so in my development courses, I remember they shared with us, we have feelings and emotions, and we don't have to become them. You can sit with them and be with those feelings and emotions because we can't even control when they show up. So I had to, even first part, I had to alter how I talked, what came out of my mouth, because I miss my dad versus I'm experiencing missing my dad is two different emotions.
mm,
It's two different realities. It's two different things I'm saying. And by me saying I experienced missing my dad, when those emotions and those chemicals release in my body and I feel this experience the sadness, it's okay to go be with that sadness. If it's
Mhm.
15 minutes, if it's an hour, if it's a day that I'm like, you know what? Today I'm just going to be with my experiences of my dad. But make sure that you talk to yourself and say, hey, I'm going to give myself 10 minutes to experience this because
Mm,
you have that power. You have that power. And saying that and how I talk and how I transform that for myself, it was freedom.
mm.
It was peace because I there are moments I don't experience missing him, and now it's my turn, and I'm the grandfather, and I gotta go take care of, and I have a mission, and God has me doing these things. I have talk shows, I gotta show up,
Yeah.
right? And that's the difference. Is sometimes we gotta watch how we talk or even describe that life because our own words could be our own trap,
Yeah.
especially in this grief conversation. And it's okay if you go a day or two not missing that loved one. That means you're growing. That means you're developing. But I know I've heard some people feel like that they have to miss that person every day or then
Yep.
they feel like they're forgetting about them. No,
Yeah.
you've got to give yourself that space because you're gonna grow and develop, and then that it's not like they're gonna go away, but it's
Right.
like you're gonna mature, you're gonna grow, you're gonna develop, and it's gonna be less and less where you experience some of that
Right.
emotion. Your mind, will, and emotion, all that's in your body, that's in your soul.
Yeah. I want to say two things. Number one, it's impossible to forget about them. It's
Yeah.
impossible to forget about them because you if you're grieving someone, you had a heart connection with them. Some people call grief as like the as being so super connected to love because you if you didn't love something or someone you wouldn't be grieving it,
Right.
period, end of story.
Exactly.
And so that part of it, I think I want to just say that it's impossible for you to forget them. You had a heart connection. That's they're not, I guarantee you, if the person that you're missing, if their energy still exists somewhere in space and time, they are not sitting back feeling sorry. They're not sitting back feeling sorry that you're not missing them right this second. I promise you that. I promise you that. But two, when you're talking about language, we've covered in this series the ability to grieve over things as well, not just a
Yeah.
death, but friendships and jobs and houses
Exactly.
and things and situations and all of those things that we have the
Animals.
ability to grieve. Yep. All of those things that we have the ability to grieve. Um, Going back to what you were saying, it's so the language piece, so important. And I've even worked with people um sharing some of my personal story. We talked about health being something that we grieve as
Mhm.
well. And I cringe every single time I hear somebody say, my anxiety,
Mhm.
my arthritis. What are you claiming?
Yeah.
What are you claiming? So of course you're going to miss something that is you've claimed to be yours.
Yeah. It's wild because as I became this advocate, and understanding afflictions and diseases and just the emotional around that, not all, but some people, when they hear that diagnosis of
Mm,
that arthritis, they put that on like a jacket again, and then they
yep.
wear that, and the emotional and whatever that is comes with that. And some people pass away sooner than maybe they were supposed to because they take on that emotional of that diagnosis, and that's real. I almost took on that disabled veteran jacket, and I put it on, and I was about to wear it, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, no way, like I'm not, like I have these conditions, but I don't have to change my life. I don't have to say I can't do this anymore. I can't do this. No, no, no. Like
Yeah,
our words are so powerful. And so sometimes you just got to check how you talk and
absolutely.
describe life. Sometimes we describe life and we don't say what we're dealing with because if I tell you my ailments or what I'm dealing with, you might judge me,
Right.
and then I'm going to lose that sense of belonging or that connection to you, and not being judgmental is something that I've taken on in these conversations, because people are dealing with so much, and we suffer in silence, and this is why we had this conversation, so that you can find the space to say what you need to say, exactly what it is, right? Versus describing it, because we're all struggling.
Yeah.
But that's a general word. What is that struggle? And when you say what that struggle is in a place where you can get some support, then you can start getting help in that specific area of grief that you need at that time.
Right. Absolutely. Cheryl said, "Thank you so much. Harass me all you want. I will take that as a challenge."
What's our Instagram?
Are we friends on Facebook yet? Because we're real good at harassment.
What's
Cheryl said,
IG?
I don't feel like I do a good job of showing up, but you're trying. And that trying piece, that shows that you're not
Yeah.
as stuck as you might think you are, because it's when we stop. It's when we stop making an effort and that's where that stuckness come in. Cheryl said, "I'm grieving over the bridge collapsing today, knowing that my family crosses it every day. My nephew just happened to work day shift, so was off last night." A lot of us have been thinking about that that day. I have family in Baltimore as well. And so that was as soon as I saw it this morning, and I went on, I said, "Did everybody post on Facebook? Is everybody good?" And it's just that, and you do sometimes have that. Sometimes because we're so inundated with the news and things like that, it's not even like our loved ones that pass, but we feel that grief because we feel grief over, like, what if, like,
Oh yeah, that's
imagine if, yeah,
that's the word. That's almost even worse than the
yeah,
actual grief. That's what I'm
yeah,
saying. When I got into the Bible and learned what God had to say about afflictions, afflictions are not just health. You can have afflictions from just watching too much CNN, watching too much TV, too much news, because you're taking
yep,
all that stuff in, and it depends on where your state of mind is of what you make it mean about you and your family. You could project that brain imagination of what ifs can also be just as detrimental as actually experiencing that grief. And so that's why we're human beings. We all have a core love for one another. Like, of course, when we see these things happen, our hearts go out to those people and those families. But then what do you make that mean about you and your family
right,
is where you have to start
right,
protecting that, of how you take that into your subconscious mind, into your heart, because by you taking all that in and then filtering it however you filter that about yourself, you might even not want to go outside no more, because it's like you fear of something happening, and that's just as much as the reality of death
yeah,
as well.
absolutely. We're gonna take a quick break, and we're gonna
Let's
come back,
go.
do a little minor recap, and then we have a exclusive video
What?
from the Friendship Paradox. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this.
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm blessed, my brother. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Hey, did you see the game last night?
Oh, that was a good game.
But did you see the shot?
I lost money from that shot.
Oh,
too,
man,
bro.
that shot was cold,
I
man.
hated it, but it was good. Damn. What's in those jeans?
You really want to know?
I do.
Exhaustion, muscle spasms, asthmatic issues, unexpected sickle cell trait crises.
Damn. Are you serious? When I was young, I found out I had sickle cell trait. My mom's told me, but I ain't have no knowledge of it. But when I got older, I had a child, and the doctor told me my daughter has sickle cell trait. Do you know the facts that both parents have sickle cell trait? There's a 50% chance the child may have the trait, and 25% chance the child may have the disease.
Hey, that's what's the count. Do you know that 2.5 million people in the United States have sickle cell trait, 300 million people globally? I didn't find out I had sickle cell trait until I was in the Army, 10 years. Next thing you know, I had a sickle cell trait exertion site.
Sickle cell? I thought that was a black gene or something.
Nah, man, the Latin community is number 2. 1 out of 36,000 babies are being born with sickle cell disease. You could be Caucasian, Mediterranean, European. You gotta know your bloodline, man.
There is an inherited gene in our community that has been forgotten. The name is sickle cell trait. WDCONSCT, also known as What's the Count, is out to bring awareness, education, and prevention to people all over the globe. Want more information? Call us now at 323-215-5384 or visit www.wdconsct.org.
Welcome back to Beyond 2D. We are on part 4 of our series about grief. Tonight, we are talking about transforming grief into growth. We've talked about the language that we used. We've talked about harassing each other, and to me that means surrounding yourself with people, being mindful of the community that you're surrounding yourself with that can help lift you up in those times that you're struggling in your grief journey. And we've talked about limiting what you're taking in, and we've talked about moving forward with grief and like it's not a start and stop. It's not a put in pretty boxes and organize on a shelf. It's the grief is going to be with you. The question is, are you going to continue to move forward while you're experiencing that, or are you waiting for something magical to take place?
And to move forward was one of my points, was finding meaning and purpose.
Mm.
And whatever that is, Cheryl, that you feel like you're in, what voice do you have in that conversation? How many people need to hear your voice around that conversation who could be more stuck than you are, right? And so some people find their purpose in life through these grief conversations, and that's a good thing. That could energize you and keep you going and connect to people. But you know, that seeking that understanding in that grief, it truly can lead to personal growth.
Yeah.
It truly can, and then out of that personal growth comes that sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And we're all born for a conversation. You know, I've advocate for this sickle cell trait gene, and people have died, athletes have died, veterans have died, people have died, and I use those deaths as fuel to my conversation to justify even more why I need to speak about this cause. I can't control when, where, how, why people die. We only get an opinion. We only get an opinion of when, where, why, how people, even on the news, in our families, we only get an opinion about that. If you can give up your opinion about that, maybe that could be the healing process, and then finding that purpose. So it's so many layers to it. Again, just tell the truth to yourself and find someone that you can have that hard conversation with, so you have the confidence in someone and not feel like you're going to be judged by just saying, you know what, I feel terrible today. Like, you can say that. Like,
Yeah.
you can say that. Like, I don't feel like doing, yeah. You may feel like that, and you might need to experience that for the 15, 20, 30 minutes, 2 hours, and be okay with that.
Right.
It's not wrong. There's no wrong, like I said, there's no wrong way to heal. Like, we have no idea what those stages are. They're not linear. They're any given time you could be in any different space.
Right. Absolutely. And I will say, you know, I talked about earlier how grief was the foundation of how the Breakthrough Show Network was created, and I was not in a space, some sort of imaginary space of perfection when I started this. I mean, I remember when the first show came on, and I'm crying and carrying on and everything else, and I've been very clear as I'm about to share this segment with you, that some of the grief that I've really struggled with, especially recently, has been a loss of friendship. A friendship may have come to an end that I've really struggled with, and that being literally right now in that space of grieving over those friendships fueled me to work on this documentary that I'm working on called The Friendship Paradox. And in this documentary, I had a conversation with one of my guests for the documentary, Karen Ramsey Smith, who recently lost her partner.
Mm.
And in this conversation, she goes on to share, you'll hear my question that I asked her. And then she goes on to share a really, really beautiful visual about death and grief itself that I hope you'll enjoy. So here's an exclusive look at the friendship paradox.
I want to talk to you for a minute about grief. I know that we've both experienced some times of immense grief in our lives. And one of the things you've also mentioned is about understanding the seasonal aspect of some friendships. So we may grieve, but they're still here, that we might have experienced a loss, but they're still here. Have you examined at all the similarities or differences between grieving a relationship that has just come to an end or that they're actually gone?
So I guess what those two things have in common is the sense of separation that we experience when we lose someone, whether that be through death or through just physical separation. And for me, there's a lot of similarities between them both. There's both those experiences. It's an energetic thing, and relationships come to an end for lots of different reasons, but that sense of separation when somebody's energy has been intertwined with yours for a while, and if you have that deeper connection with someone, the sense of grief is the same. It's the same, and it can be as deep and it can be as painful as losing somebody physically from this earth, this realm. So I think there are similarities. I think the differences would be, even though the sort of feelings and emotions can be the same, I think the differences are the mental understanding of the finality of somebody leaving the physical realm. And I think there's something about death that it feels very final or in this, human body and emotions. And that sort of creating that ending can feel devastating, and that is a process. When somebody leaves the physical earth, that is a process that you have to go through, of mentally coming to terms with what has happened, and it's really about the physical, the part of us that feels very unsafe, because it's about us, what we feel. We think we're really here and in this body, and we believe that the body is more important than the spirit, but through grief, I think we really go through that spiritual journey of understanding, then acceptance of that death occurs, death of this physical form, of the way that we believe that we exist, and into something different, into moving into a different state of consciousness, of understanding that energy is what's there, and it's not actually the majority of us is not this physical form, that the majority of us is spirit, it's energy. There's a soul there that has been in this life and then is no longer in this particular body. So, and that's obviously my personal belief, but for me, I went on that journey of really a spiritual journey, particularly I think when I lost my mum and my partner, that of acceptance, of not just acceptance, but of really focusing and connecting with the preciousness of life itself. And that, as I did that, that's what really helped me to grow spiritually with grief, understanding that life is connected in all forms and that my loved ones were still here through life itself, through life force, the life force energy that we all are and what connects us all together, and that it's okay, everything's okay. And one of my favorite spiritual teachers, for 10, 15 years, who sadly passed away a few years ago, is Thich Nhat Hanh. And I, as a mindfulness teacher, he's been a big influence on my life. And I love that he talks about, and I talk about this a lot, but I love that, and I went to it as with my own practice of grief, is being with my cup of tea in the morning and focusing on that tea in silence and understanding that the water, what was in my cup, has come from nature, and everything about my loved one was in that cup. That, the rain from the rain clouds has come from the rain clouds, that's come from the earth, it's come from where my loved ones have gone back to after they died. And the resonance from them is now through the clouds, through the rain, through coming through my water pipe into my kettle, into my teacup, is now still here with me. And I love that. I love metaphors of nature, and I love to use that and kind of be with my loved ones through being present with nature, being present with simple things, simple rituals, and knowing that they're still here in some kind of form, that I can still be with them. And that the understanding that we're all connected through that energy just has changed my life, and has helped me massively with grief. The sadness is still there, obviously, of course. I'm still sad that I can't physically touch my loved ones, and I can't physically, audibly speak to them, but I can still communicate and be with them and share things with them the same as I did when they were alive. And I believe that energy isn't one way. It's not me just talking to them and sharing with them and telling them. I believe I receive a lot of support from energy that has left the earth, but also all of the other energy that we're connected to around us in nature and life, whatever life ends up being formed into around me and what comes into contact with me. And it's been an amazing way to grieve, is to be in touch with life itself and to sense into the preciousness of life, and that to be alive is a precious gift.
I want to give a special thank you to Karen Ramsey Smith for allowing us to use that clip. I will tell you, if that clip gives you any indication of the blessing that this project has been to me, I can't wait for you guys to see it when it's done. But when she went to describe the cup of tea, I lost it behind the scenes, lost it absolutely, because I think that that's been such a huge part of my own transforming grief into growth and moving forward with grief, is knowing that by living, they are with us.
What she said reminded me of going through my divorce and how I learned that our emotions are tied together like a spider web. And when you pull that spider web apart, like those are the emotions being torn from that person. So it's not just marriages, but friendships. He says also experience that same kind of emotion of friendships, that being torn apart from one another.
Yeah.
And I don't know how people act like that stuff don't happen. Like you've got to be a really great pretender to not have your emotions show up. Or again, people do what they do behind closed doors and they drink or do whatever, but you can only pretend for so long before those emotions, they're going to show up. And that's why I say, do they show up out as rage and upset and frustration when it's really at the core of just hurting? So yeah, I like that. Yeah, she spoke to me on that one. I'm like, and I think about every now and then I'll let my mind go. Like, what is it going to be like when I'm not here? And I just feel this, like I just feel that, like, I don't even know what's on the other side, but to think about what it's going to be like for my grandsons and my grandchildren, that when I'm not here anymore after I've had these relationships with them. Like I let my mind go there, and it's like a feeling like oh my gosh, like the wonder of it, but then the sadness that comes because you have no idea how that's going to be for them.
For me, like I would rather move forward with the grief and finish my life, if we're even able to think after, finish my life going, God, I wish I had more time to live more of that, than to look back and go, I was too in grief to keep living.
Yeah.
That's where I keep trying to remind myself.
Yeah.
This has been such a powerful conversation, the last 4 episodes, and I want to thank Kat popped in at the end there. I want to thank all of you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate you. And absolutely, you guys it's the only sneak peek I'm offering. So that's it. I'm tight-lipped on the rest of it, but I was so eager to share that with you guys when we talked about that in some of the interviews that I had done for the Friendship Paradox. Shall we tell them what's to come in the next 4 episodes?
Yeah, just to give a quick 30,000 feet overview.
All right, y'all. Give me some drum roll emojis or something. Oh. Okay. Hold on.
There it is.
There it is. All right. We are spending the next 4 episodes talking about forgiveness and compassion. Forgiveness.
Are you ready?
And, I need a button that says that. Forgiveness and compassion. Episode 1. This will all begin in April, starting in April 9th, April 23rd, May 14th, and May 28th. Those are the dates of the episode. Y'all know they will be in our calendar too, so don't worry about that. Episode 1 will be Unlocking the Heart, the first steps towards forgiveness, talking a lot about forgiving yourself and self-love and all of that. Episode 2, we're going to be talking about compassion in action, living compassion, beyond feeling compassion to doing and being compassion. And what does that look like? And I'm excited to share a little bit about my lifestyle during that episode as well. And then episode 3, Farron is going to have that spotlight on him for Bridges of Healing, which will be navigating forgiveness between generations, healing parent-child relationships.
Are you ready?
I don't know. I'm gonna be honest with you on that. You know that one? I don't remember which one it was where you were like, "I'm not coming." That might be it. Might be it for me. And then finally, something that I'm super passionate about as well, and I know Farron is too. The final episode in number 4 will be Beyond Ourselves: How Forgiveness Transforms the World, the ripple effect of forgiveness, examining the broader impact of forgiveness and compassion on communities and society at large. So this is going to be powerful
I'm ready
time,
for
you
that one though.
guys.
I'm ready for that one. I've done a lot of work around those, so I'm ready for those. Woo!
Yeah. And I can't this is going to be so exciting. Like, so look at Brittany's crying already. We're crying and it's not even coming in today. It's going to be so powerful, and I would love for you all to go tell your friends to follow the Breakthrough Show Network on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook, all social media, and go check out the breakthroughshownetwork.com, also the breakthrough show network.club. We have all of Teresa led a beautiful meditation this morning in our meditation space. Brittany's been hosting craft circles, and the more you're plugged in, the more you can be in the know about when these episodes are coming out. And because listen, I go about my day and sometimes I'm like, oh God, I have a show in an hour. Like, we know how busy everybody is. And so I love it. Thank you for being here
I
tonight.
got a shout out to One Way TK. We just had an interview with him. So his interview is going to be dropping on our Revolution Radio show on Lit Live. It will air Saturday at 7 p.m. and again Sunday at 5 p.m. He and I met. We did the interview. He lost his sister a few years back, and so that whole grief, we had to talk about that on the show.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate him. I sent him the link and like, hey man, if you got time, check this out. So, and here he is. So I appreciate you, my brother.
God
is good. God is good. It's got some good music too. So,
that is he.
He's Christian,
Listen,
Christian rapper.
Listen,
Yeah.
I would love to listen. One Way, if you want to come on the Breakthrough Show too, like you holler at me, because me and music, you know how I feel about that. But and Christian music was such a huge part of my life for such a long period of time. And One Way, KJ52. I went to go see him. I went to go see him in concert. I need to show you. I need to show some pictures of that concert because it was so funny. It was so funny. Anyway, I'm gonna digress on all that. But I would love to have you on the show as well. I think it's so important to share these stories of transforming from grief into growth and all of that, because it can really be an inspiration to those people who are struggling. And
a lot I'm gonna say this, some people aren't even aware of the opportunity to have eternal life. Like we get so bogged down with trying to survive moments right now that we don't think about what's next for our life. And so again, those are conversations that we meet people where they are, right? This is because we don't talk religious talk. This is about eternal life and what that looks like and the opportunity. Right. And so, but I've met people that had they didn't even think about the thought about what was next for their life. So, and we share that with an opportunity for people to be born again and not just have fire insurance, but have eternal life. So, thank you.
A holiday Catholic, as my family used to call it, a holiday Catholic. Showing up on Easter and Christmas.
Right, exactly.
Easter's coming up next Sunday. I do want to wish a very happy Easter to all those that are celebrating anything you're celebrating. Look, we're here for it. We're celebrating with you. And we will be back on April.
Watch The Passion of Christ. That movie
that's a good one too.
Woo.
Yeah. And go watch Christspiracy too. I'll get that little boop in there because we're gonna be talking about that. We're gonna be talking about that coming up. So April 9th is our next episode. We'd love for you to join us. I'm Jessica Dugas. This is Farron Dozier.
We
will see you in a couple weeks. I love y'all so very much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for hanging out.